Congressman Rokita, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Raphael. Good to be back.
So you are seeking the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate. Why you? Why are you the best candidate to hold that seat after November?
Hey, look, we need courageous conservatives in the United States Senate. Time and time again, we see the Senate not getting things done, not helping President Trump make America great again. I'm the true Trump ally that will stand shoulder to shoulder with him, building the wall, doing all those things that we need to be doing to drain the swamp and get this country back on the right track.
You have other opponents, so again, I'm going to ask the questions so that you can sort of be the differentiating marker between Mr. Messer and Mr. Braun. What makes you the better of the other two? I'm not looking for an attack ad, but just your qualifications.
I'm the courageous conservative. As your Secretary of State, we got photo identification at the polling places done. That kept illegal immigrants from voting. That kept people from cheating. Took on the establishment to get things like that done. Rethinking the redistricting operation so that voters can pick their legislators like they're supposed to and not the other way around. I take on the tough fights. We're in a tough fight right now for the heart and soul of this nation. We cannot play around. Joe Donnelly is absolutely the wrong answer. He votes with Bernie Sanders, the avowed socialist, 85% of the time. And if you really want to change the Senate, if you really want to change Washington, we need someone with a proven track record of taking on the issues that need to be taken on and winning, just like President Trump's doing. And I supported President Trump when it counted, when he was running against Hillary Clinton, and others weren't. So that's going to be a differentiator. If you want to know who's going to help President Trump, it's the guy who was with President Trump in the beginning.
A hot topic issue is that of gun control after what happened in Parkland, Florida, after what happened in Las Vegas. Do you support any, and so there's been a call for gun control measures. You've heard the arguments on both sides. Do you support any of those gun support reform or gun control measures? And then I want to then follow up on the issue of school safety.
Look, the Second Amendment, our right to defend ourselves against each other, is there for a good reason. And I'm not going to do anything that hinders a good guy having a gun to protect him and others. That's the bottom line. I happen to do a lot of work in schools. I'm the kindergarten through 12th grade education chairman in the House of Representatives. And so I have school safety summits on this very issue, even before the terrible tragedies. And what we're finding is that, number one size doesn't fit all. So you don't want Washington prescribing anything, certainly not on gun control, but also on school safety measures. You want them helping, but you want to let local school districts and parents and teachers pick what's right from a technology perspective, from a best practices perspective, what's right for that school. The one common denominator, though, that we did find, the most important and best resource, are what we call SROs, school resource officers. That would have helped in Florida, for example, if that school resource officer was actually in the building doing his job. But we shouldn't be taking away people's right to defend themselves, because that won't solve the problem.
Expand on that menu. So do you support if teachers want to be armed in a school district in Indiana? Is that okay for one, not the other? How do you?
I think all that, exactly. I think all that should be decided at the local level, and certainly with specialized training for the circumstance. If a teacher wants to do it on a voluntary basis, that teacher, again, properly trained, ought to be able to do it, but that should all be decided locally, certainly not from Washington.
And clarify then the issue on this issue of the AR-15, the bump stocks. Do you support those? Do you think that's overreaching? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I have a political ad running that has me shooting an AR-15.
I've seen the ad.
And that's not an accident, and that's certainly not insensitive. I think there's no better time, like times like these, to know where your candidates stand on personal rights, like the right to defend yourself. So that's why that ad is so important to be out. And again, I'm the only candidate that's willing to show people exactly where I stand on these important issues. Regarding bump stocks, I mean, the Obama administration is the one that approved those. I don't think this debate in school safety centers around whether someone has bump stocks or not. I think you have to be very careful anytime you try to hinder the ability of someone to protect themselves. And protecting yourself through the Second Amendment involves having enough of strength to match the strength that might be opposing you. So we've got to be very careful before we hinder anyone's Second Amendment rights.
As you know, manufacturing is king in Indiana. We rank #1 in the country. Recently, you voted for a tax reform package which should help manufacturers. A, You support that package.
Absolutely. Help write it.
Why? And what more can be done? Because at the same time that we're seeing employers giving back incentives to their employees, we're also seeing a lot of retailers closing shops, Toys R Us and Claire's, and you see that wave. What's the balance here? Give me the good, and then give me what else can be done.
Well, first of all, I absolutely support President Trump's tax cuts, and that's what they were. They were targeted tax cuts meant for the working men and women of this country. Now, the Republican Party is once again the party of working men and women, and I never want to lose that. And we always knew that our ideas are good for everybody, including working men and women, but with President Trump, we've reclaimed that mantle. These were tax cuts meant for workers, $1,000 bonuses, all those things that they're getting $85 per paycheck on average back to folks. And certainly that's going to help the manufacturing sector. We have special incentives in this tax package for manufacturers because we want to make things again. Part of making America great is making things again, so we don't have to outsource all that to other countries. And this tax cut package does that. That doesn't mean that it's bad for retailers. That could be a whole other situation going on, how we buy things, maybe through the internet now, or that could be affecting retail. I don't think that's a result of the tax cut package. But we certainly can't be great unless we're a country of manufacturers again. Indiana is the largest manufacturing state in the nation, for sure. And you see a jobs report just out this week where jobs are rebounding better than ever before in terms of manufacturing. So we're on the right track. Can't be great and you can't make America great unless you make things.
America is said to be a land of immigrants, but immigration remains a hot topic issue. Your position on DACA, your position on the wall, and now, of course, the president speaking about possibly using National Guardsmen or some sort of military force to protect the southern border. What are your thoughts on all those moving targets as it comes to immigration?
Well, again, you ask me, why go to the Senate? I'm going to be the senator that helps Mr. Trump build a wall. Not because we want to keep people out, but we have to, if you're going to be a sovereign nation, any kind of nation worth living in, you got to be able to control who you want in and who you want out. We want people to come in who are going to, who believe in America, who want to add to our economy, add to our culture, not take from our economy, not take from our culture. And by the way, a wall makes sure we can keep things out. Like we have an opioid epidemic in this state, in this country. It's closely tied to the amount of heroin that's available. 95% of the heroin coming into this country is coming through the southern, porous, open border. So a wall is absolutely necessary if you're going to have a sovereign nation. I also am the only candidate wanting English as the official language of this country. Again, not to be mean or anything like that, but if you're going to have a nation, if you're going to be unified, we all ought to speak, at least in public and through our government, in the same language. That's very important. That's something liberals always try to do to distract and distort and destroy our common bonds. Got to have a common language. With regard to DACA, look, I am not for amnesty. You cannot be a country of laws if you're going to ignore laws. Part of our American exceptionalism, a cornerstone of our exceptionalism, is that we're all supposed to be treated equally under an equally applied law. Now, in our American jurisprudence, there is a wide range of punishment for breaking the law. In fact, in current law, a first-time border crossing is a misdemeanor, $1,000 fine. I mean, there has to be some kind of punishment for this, and a wall has to come first before any kind of deal with DACA.
So when you talked about, to clarify your positioning on the misdemeanor, would you want to see that as a felony or maybe an increased?
Oh, I'm not even saying that there needs to be a change. I'm just saying that the simple fact is, for every crime in this country, there's an appropriate punishment, and amnesty by definition is ignoring the punishment. And if you do that, you become less of a country, because if you're going to ignore some law, why not ignore other law? And pretty soon you're living in some kind of kangaroo government, and that's not right.
But clarify the misdemeanor part. Are you saying, though, that current law, if you want to make it much more more teeth to it, that it should be at least?
No, I'm not saying that at all. Okay. I'm just saying you can't. But amnesty means you're not going to have any punishment.
Okay.
And I'm just saying there has to. We can figure out with the wide spectrum we have in American jurisprudence. We can figure out what the appropriate punishment should be for a DACA recipient, for example, and we can apply that in a very humane and reasonable and equitable way to solve this. But before any of that, we have got to build a wall, and my position is, number one, no amnesty, And number two, wall has to be built or guaranteed to be built, like a trust fund set up that has the funds in it to build that wall. So this problem doesn't happen again, right? If you don't build the wall, then this DACA problem or whatever issue we're having with immigration continues to happen. And we don't want that. We want to stop it from happening. That's why you have to build a wall.
Roads and bridges are crumbling. When you landed at Indianapolis International Airport and you made your way on 465, you might have felt a pothole or two.
Yes.
Indianapolis is no different than Ohio or Montana or Texas. Cities and states are having a difficult time maintaining their infrastructure. What needs to be done? In the case of Indiana, as you know, since you lifelong Hoosier, often what we send out in taxes does not come back to help the cities and states. So,
oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
So what needs to be done? Because the president has talked about infrastructure as part of his cornerstone.
I think the president has the right approach. I think he's making wants to make a $200 billion payment. I think we can definitely find that money in the federal government by prioritizing it over some other things. I want to give you an example of my approach versus some other approaches. I'm the only one on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee in Congress from Indiana who's in the majority party. A couple of years ago, we wrote a multi-year funding bill for roads that gave $1 billion, that's billion with a B, back to Indiana. And then the other states got their calculation as well, but Indiana alone got $1 billion that'll take place over 5 years. We did it without raising taxes. And we did it without printing the money. That is, we took from other places, we deprioritized other things, and we made roads a priority. That's Washington, D.C. You know, and here in the state, what they did was like, okay, let's tax people more, let's catch people up for the taxes we didn't charge them before, and let's divert other taxes to roads. But they didn't say, okay, here's what we're going to live less with, or here's what we're going to give back to people in terms of their money, in terms of their property. They just grabbed more. And you look today, and you're losing axles and tires and wheels.
A lot of wheels.
No improvement. Took people's money, no improvement.
So would you send more people's money back to the state, to all the
Well,
states?
what I would do, I mean, what I'd like to do is see ultimately the federal government be less of a factor. Even though we were able to get $1 billion back to Indiana without raising taxes, without printing the money, we did a great job with that. You know, the fact of the matter is, maybe the federal government just has to deal with interstates, and then let states do the rest. Then it may make some sense to raise some taxes, but only then. And then you should still be asking, okay, if we're going to raise here, what are we going to lower here? And that second part of the question never seems to be asked by politicians.
So many issues, so many things to do. So if the people of Indiana do say, look, you are the best candidate, we want you to go to Washington for us, on day one in January, when you're able to enter the Senate, what is the priority? What are the 1-2 priorities that you'll say, look, there's a lot going on, and I think, of course, the world can change between now and January, right? So based on what we know today, what would you want those 1 or 2 things for you to be like, this is my thing?
Look, I want to help President Trump build a wall. I want to have English as our official language. I have the SLAPP Act. I want to end dangerous sanctuary cities because they're against, like I was talking about before, they're against the rule of law. So I want to slap handcuffs on, I should go like that, on those local politicians who ignore federal immigration law, like a federal ICE detainer request. Think Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, think Jerry Brown of California, think about that lunatic mayor in Oakland City. Who was advising illegal aliens that ICE was coming. They ought to be felons, and we ought to put them in jail. The SLAPP Act, that would be day one.
Todd Rokita, seeking the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate in Indiana. Thank you so much for stopping by. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And best of luck to you.
Thank you.